I found a section of abandoned rails here, and I want to find out where they go. If you do too, stick around. Hey there guys, welcome back to a brand new video adventure. Today, we're going to be exploring some abandoned rails. Joining me is friend and fellow YouTuber, RJ78 Productions, and we're coming to you from a location that we filmed last year together. This is the site of an old strip mining operation where we found old pieces of equipment, giant cone piles, and these abandoned rails. And we're going to find out where they go. So if this sounds like it's for you, all you got to do is come along with me. All right, welcome back. So what I can tell you is a few things that I have learned doing a bit of research prior to coming here today. Now the line that we're on here is an old spur line. This was here to service businesses and or industries. Going in this direction that we're facing goes for about another half a mile. It goes across the roadway, which is paved over it, goes through a tree line, and eventually terminates in a neighborhood. Now I believe the tracks went further to service businesses or industries back in the day, but it was redeveloped and homes were put in, and the tracks are terminated further down by another roadway. But we are going to show you just a bit of that before we head on where we are right now. Off to the left you can see one of the giant cone piles from the strip mining operation. Now the tracks this way do go a bit further, so if we follow them, which we're going to, for 1.2 miles there is a switch. The switch goes off to the left as another spur, and that is going to an active business which is still serviced by rail today. It's actually serviced by R.J. Corman. Prior to them taking over, it was Luzerne and Susquehanna Railway. 3/4 of a mile past that switch is another switch connecting to what is now the Norfolk Southern main line. Prior to Norfolk Southern running on the main line, Canadian Pacific used to work out of this area from the Taylor Yard doing local work, and prior to them was most likely Conrail. So with about 90% certainty, these tracks here were servicing the strip mine operation. They probably brought in empty gondola cars, loaded up with coal, and shipped them out of here. And it could have been serviced by one of those few railways, which would have been Luzerne, Susquehanna, Canadian Pacific, or Conrail, or a combination of the three.
Or all of the above.
Yeah, all of the above, a combination of three. But as you can see, they hasn't seen any action or service in decades. I mean, there's tree overgrowth. There's a lot of bad areas that you could tell trains can't make it through, or haven't made it through for a long time. We're also going to try to get some dates on the rails too as we make our way about, to kind of give us an idea as to when they were put in place. But for the meantime, we are going to get moving on the other side of the roadway, where that direction, and we'll show you where the tracks go through the tree line. Down here in the snow right now, and it's very hard to see. I'm going to try to snap a still photo of it, but right there it is stamped 1929. There is some other markings as the manufacturer. I can't make it though, it's not legible. But right there, 1929. So we do have 1929 date on the inner rail. Okay, so we walked around the easier way. As you can see, it's pretty thick here. The rails are still in here. They come out somewhere near this area. There's some material that's dumped here, so they are buried, but we were standing maybe about 30-40 feet where my last clip was. So if we do follow them, they come underneath the kind of shoulder here, which are buried, and cross the roadway. And you can see there's homes on the left, there's homes down there on the right. Right in the middle is a tree line where the rails do continue straight. So tracks are here. You can tell they don't line up straight, so it would have been a curve coming over to come over here. Now the tracks are cut clean right at the edge of the road, and they basically just left them here. So they're not paved over, they just removed them prior to doing the road construction, but it is pretty thick. It goes for half a mile roughly to another road where they do terminate. So we're going to try to walk a little bit just to give you an idea what it looks like. It's heavily covered with brush and trees, so we're not going to get too far without having to struggle making our way through, but you'll get a sense as to how it looks. Is looking back where they would have went across the road in the direction towards RJ's truck over there. Just a short ways in, I walked right past it. RJ spotted it. A telegraph pole.
Definitely no insulator.
It's still got the corks on them though. I got duck. This part is not very easy to navigate.
That was almost catastrophic.
Alright, I think this is about as far as we're going to go. We could keep pushing through, but it's going to look very similar to this. It's heavily overgrown, fallen trees. Everything's still here, but it just is pretty thick. And even in the wintertime, we're having a hard time. If you can imagine the summertime, it'd be near impenetrable. So if you can't tell, we did cross back over the road and we are walking the longer distance of this spur line, which at the very minimum we're going 1.2 miles to the first switch. And I think along the way we may be crossing one or two bridges and might be a culvert or two and possibly a few discoveries in the woods, which looked like on Google Maps at least. So aside from following the rail line, we may come across some additional video-worthy content as well. But make sure you stay tuned to watch to find out. And before we continue, one thing I ask you to do, and it'd be greatly appreciated, and I'll be thankful for it, is to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. That's only if you enjoy it, but hopefully you will. So in our previous visit to this location, RJ and myself were up on top of that mountain of Culm, but we did climb it on the other side, which is much steeper, much harder. Don't forget, if you didn't see that video, it will pop up on the screen somewhere in the corner here. You can check it out after this one. It'll also be on the end card at the end of this video. But there is a little crossing here. It's not a official crossing, it's just that the Culm material spilled over the rails here and formed a makeshift crossing, but rails are still here, workings are over there, woods and trails up there, and it continues straight. And as we see along the way, there's going to be multiple spillover areas where the Culm is covering the rails. Alright, let's hope I don't fall through the ice. Place your bets. You know what? It's because I lost that COVID weight. Before COVID, I would have fell through.
I was going to say, now that you're my size, it's not an issue.
I can walk across things now. I'll be dipped. So I wanted to bring you up to date as to where we are. Now this location here is where me and RJ cut through to check out the rest of the strip mining area in our previous video. But when doing so, we did cross over the rails, which are right here. So we have been following them along the Culm bank. They come through here with another makeshift crossing. A lot of things dumped here, including material. And looks like it's a shooting area as well. But the rails do continue straight on. So there is a path right now following it alongside, actually both sides of it. So we're going to try our best to keep it an open area and just pop in from time to time. But the rails are still continuing. They are still here. Certain areas are buried, but nonetheless, we are going to continue on at least to the first switch, which should be a little bit under a mile at this point. Another dumping pile here. We got a couple of televisions, some ties, some carpet-like material. And it looks like we're being forced to cross over the tracks too, because the path no longer continues in that direction. But we should be able to keep tabs of it going closer on the inside section near the Culm piles. But yeah, it doesn't look a whole lot different, but it's still here, still continuing along. Tree growth is reclaiming it, as are the weeds. But we're starting to go around a little sweeping curve here to the left. And if my calculations are correct, once we get past the Culm pile up there, I think there's going to be a bridge we may cross. After that should be the switch. Fingers crossed I'm right. We're not the only ones here. There are some other footprints, but we're coming to an area with some pretty thin ice because we're both kind of falling through in certain areas. Don't know how deep it is, but this gives us a nice, great visual of the rails. I gotta say, these rails remind me of a old main line similar to the Erie Railroad. For a spur, it's a good distance one. And it went through some pretty rugged areas. Continuing our progress, walking down the snowy pathway here, and where RJ's heading, there's another dump pile. And these are always fun to check out. You never know what you're going to find. So we'll take a moment just to see what's over here. A bit of everything. We've got a mattress. We got part of a Christmas tree, so it's officially abandoned. That might be a laundry basket, I believe. There's remnants of a box fan and a steam cleaner. Carpet shampooer. Maybe we could clean the rails with that. Is this part of a car seat here? And RJ found a TV that's pretty gutted. Part of a mattress or couch with the springs. Fuel container of sorts. See a toddler pool back there for those hot summer days. And a beautiful patch of nature's carpet. All right, I did spot something. I'm going to get over there and show you what it is. Not something I expected to see here, but we do find just the randomest things. Do you guys see it? It's right there in the middle of the screen. I believe we found a frosty blow mold. There he is. Well, he's seen better days, but I think he's thankful that we gave him his moment in the spotlight here. Is his face supposed to be black like that?
I don't think so.
He might be a South Pole frost man. All right, well, say goodbye to Mr. Frosty. See what else we find along the way here.
Looks like we found the next pit. I didn't take it.
Dope.
Get out of the way there, guys.
So we came to a clearing in the rails here. No trees, just some grass and weeds and little tumbleweed stuff, but we're still following the tracks. It keeps clear up around the bend. We're still going around a sweeping curve. I believe the end of the comb piles are in this area here. That should be the last of them, which means we are getting that much closer to the first switch and possibly train bridge. So we're able to walk right here in the gauge for a little bit, and then if we have to, we'll pick a side. We've been walking on the right side. There's like an ATV path that's allowing some clear access as well. But the other thing we were spotting too along the way, and I probably should have showed it back then, but I'll probably find another one, is a lot of these ties are still in good shape. A lot of them are not. Like this one is pretty rotted, but like this one here is still pretty solid and intact. And there's the spike. It's a keepsake.
Here we go. It left its mark.
That's a keepsake, for Pete's sake. Yeah, so some of the ties look like they were replaced in its later years of operation. You know, looking on the rails here, it almost looks like something ran on here not too long ago, within the last year. Maybe it was like a rail bike or a speeder, possibly. But yeah, there's definitely some wear marks. So anything's possible. Someone could have been here on a rail bike or a speeder or a high railer. I don't think a locomotive came through here. And if it did come through, it can't really go much further than where we were back there, where it's all trees and overgrown. Aside from the wear on the rails that is a bit odd, we are finding more spikes here too. A lot of them still intact, some of them just laying on the side. That one is seeing some pressure on it.
Definitely been here a while.
So the mystery continues. Why is there wear marks on the tracks? Maybe we'll have our answer as we continue down. Alright, so we're making some coverage here, some ground. We're now past the comb piles. They are back there to our left. And as you can see behind me, and I'll show you in front, the tracks are very open here. Almost open enough for trains to ride on. And it does indeed look like there is wear on the tracks, even more so here. So, almost certain something was back here on the rails. Could have been a high rail truck, a speeder, or a pedal rail bike. Very doubtful it was a locomotive, but I'm not going to rule that out. Like I said, this does connect to a switch up ahead, which RJ Corman does service at a business. Maybe they use this to put cars on as a holding line. But up ahead though is some bridges which we'll be crossing. So once we get up there, we'll bring you right back. Alright, things became very, very interesting and unexpected. So right back there is a switch that is replacing an old switch. Not only that, these rails are super shiny. These see activity on them. On top of that, splits off into two, and then we have a couple bridges here. So we have two here, and a third one which looks like it used to have rails on it, maybe as a siding. And then further up, there's another set of bridges. So, to my knowledge, this was not used as an active line, and I still don't believe it is. I think it's used as a holding line because, as we've seen walking from the far end, they can only go so far. So I think they use this line for either switch lines or as a holding line. But seeing that there was track work done and maintenance away vehicles here replacing the ties is not something that we expected to see today. And like I said, the rails are very shiny and look like they are in semi-regular use. So the cool thing is that back there we started as an abandoned line, and then we came to a semi-active line. And here's a look at the bridges. So two of them do have the rails. The other one has the rails removed, so there would have been a third line here. It's now an ATV crossing, and these are girder bridges. And you can see the rivets on them. But yeah, that's in really good condition. This is more or less remnants of a defunct bridge, and the roadway goes underneath. That wasn't too bad across. They do have some sheet metal covering it, and the ties are fairly intact. The neat thing though, I was pointing out to RJ, you could see some kind of concaveness to it, where the plates used to be and the rails were resting on it, so it had some weight there originally when the rails were sitting on it. But they were removed for whatever reason, and they placed just the sheet metal here now, I guess so nothing falls through onto the roadway. But this is no longer an active train bridge, but these two, it's safe to say that it is. And maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe something will come down this way as we're making our way up further down. But we're gonna head to those bridges next, and we'll see what they look like. Nice shot looking from where we came from. Now the unique thing is, as we saw with those two bridges, the rails are right next to each other. The one on the far left is no longer an active bridge. You see it, RJ? It's up there.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got it.
I was gonna say, if you don't see it, just watch my video.
Okay.
But up here though, it's kind of switched where the rails are on the outside bridges. The middle one is empty, but again, did have rail at one time. There is ties there. There's a lot of plates here. So for whatever reason, they kind of rerouted it, removed certain sections of track, and these are shiny. And I believe these are shiny too. So these both see use. This one's more shinier. This one's heavier use. Now up ahead is the switch that I was mentioning. That means we walked 1.2 miles to come to this location. This switch up here goes to a business company that is actively serviced by RJ Corman. So without a doubt, I mean, unless I am by chance wrong, which I have been before, I'm pretty certain RJ Corman is using this line for at least switching, if not a holding line. But back in the day, it could have been Missouri Susquehanna, could have been Conrail, could have been, yeah, maybe someone I didn't even realize was in use out here as a short line railroad company. As you come over here too, there's also a section of rail laying here. And down there is another line, which is for, I believe, Reading and Northern, if I'm not mistaken. So they go underneath these bridges. But where we're going is to the right. So there is some work that's done here. There's some fresh ballast put down. That's going to the business that's actively being used. This is meeting up with the line we've been following. So it's just a connector. And that continues, excuse me, another 3/4 of a mile to the Norfolk Southern Main Line. But that looks pretty well maintained. So we're going to go a bit further. We're going to see what else there is to discover. I don't think it's going to turn abandoned anymore, obviously, because they have to keep it active to get down to this point. But nonetheless, though, it is a unusual discovery to see what we assumed was completely abandoned lines turn into an active section here that is maintained. So it just goes to show that if we didn't walk this line to come down this far, we wouldn't have known this. And we're back, and we covered quite a bit of ground. So where we're looking is where we came from. Further down that way is the switches and the bridges, And as you can tell, this looks like a much more active line. There is fresh ballast here, the rails are shiny, and that is because there are train cars sitting here. And as my assumption was correct, this is now a holding line. These cars I could see from the next roadway that goes across the crossing. So this line does connect with a switch to the main line, which is going to be further up in that way over there. So these, I believe, are for the business industry that's being serviced over there by RJ Corman. They're using this as a holding line now, but it is definitely active. These do go back to the bridges, to the switches, and then over to where the business is, which may or may not be that building over there. The other thing too, which I spotted on Google Maps but didn't realize how it looked in person, is right here underneath the rails is a pretty big culvert, but it's a ultra modern one. It's poured concrete, we got fences around it, and although it does look inviting, there's no way to really get in there safely. It's a pretty high wall. But I do want to take you down here though, just to give you a glimpse as to what it looks like going underneath, and we'll see what it looks like from down there. All right, so the rails are up there, came down this little embankment, and we are now looking through the fence at the culvert, which is freshly poured concrete. What it looks like, it's pretty new. You see there's little drainage pipes coming through from probably various drains, but this is more or less for flood control. This handles all the drainage through the towns and cities. Eventually will lead down, I believe, to the Susquehanna River, somewhere in that direction. And like I said, there is water flowing through it, and it's a high wall, so even if I was to scale the fence and hop down, it'd be really hard to get out without any equipment, so we just have to admire it from here. But I will stick you over the fence though and try to give you a little bit of a view before we do depart.
I want to get some old beater car and like drive it through here.
Yeah. Like the LA canals or something like that. So with what we found today, what we discovered, going from an abandoned line to an active modern line, even though it's not a main line, it's more of a holding line. I did not see that coming, was not expecting that. I don't think you did either. But it made for an intriguing video because we got to see old and abandoned to modern and maintained. So we got best of both worlds in the same location, same video. And like I said, we wouldn't have known that if we didn't walk the entire line. We're not going any further just because it's just a active holding line going to the main line. And there's nothing really to see. It's just some tanker cars sitting on it. And the culvert, which I did plan on going through, is not happening either. But nonetheless, though, I do want to thank RJ for joining me, because this is not only our first video together after me getting out of COVID, it's our first video of 2022. So I just want to thank him for joining me. This is something we planned on doing. We pulled the trigger on it. We did it. So thanks for being part of it.
Yeah, no problem.
Lastly, I'd like to hear your feedback. Tell us what your thoughts are as to what you've seen as far as the old abandoned sections, the comb piles, you know, the active areas, anything you want to share. Would love to hear your thoughts. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Check out his video, which will be linked down below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. If you do too, stick around.
As we're getting busted.
Try it one more time.
Yeah.